Good morning. Well, shall we try it again? Good morning. My name is Richard Shanefarber. I'm president of the Shaker Heights Alumni Association. And just what seems like a few years ago, I was seated out there in the audience. I'm glad to see all of you here this morning. This is our 7th Hall of Fame presentation. We will be inducting, or actually we inducted last night, 11 new members into the Hall of Fame, which will make a total of 70 Shaker graduates that are now members of the Shaker Heights High School Hall of Fame. These are special people, but they're people just like you. A few years ago, they sat out in the audience and they looked up at the stage and they said, "How do you get on the stage?" Well, they are going to be on the stage today because they've done something with their lives. And what I believe many of them are going to tell you today is it all began here at Shaker Heights High School. And I hope they're going to tell you that you can do it too. That's the message I'd like to leave you today, is that you can do it too. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to now turn over the program to a future leader, to your 1993 class president, Tolly.
Our first honoree today is Rob Fisher, class of '57. He's an environmental sculptor who's a pioneer in the application of computer-aided design to large-scale sculpture. His commissioned sculptures include installations at the Osaka and New York Hiltons, at Trump Plaza, and the Medical Center in Saudi Arabia. Rob Fisher.
I appreciate the opportunity of speaking to you all here, and I've selected a group of slides to show you that suggest some of the opportunities of relating art and technology. I studied both science and art at Shaker, and I think that the message that I'd like to convey to you about success and what to do with your lives is that you have to want something. Basically, success is a very, very fleeting thing, and it's also a very amorphous thing. You can't tell exactly what it means until you've achieved something. You have to have a sense of achievement. You have to want something very, very much, because the monies are not enough, and they certainly are not always there. In those of us who have chosen professions in the arts, it's a very rocky road, and it's one that you have to want very badly in order to achieve it. But I wanted this thing. I wanted to somehow combine art and technology. I wanted to take science and math and do something other than make weapons and bombs with them. And so I chose the field of art. Shaker was an inspiring place because of the teachers that were around, and I'm sure that they are still here in large numbers. The sense of achievement on the part of my friends, and the fact that they had goals. You'll find that the people who do anything with their lives have goals. And it's as simple as that, really. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the most outstanding person in your class or the greatest this or the greatest that. You just simply have to want to do something. You also have to recognize the uniqueness that is you. There is no field of art and technology per se. I basically created it myself. And those of us who are members of this Hall of Fame, I think, all basically created their own professions. You can't look to others to do that for you. You have to do that yourself. And there are no rules, and you have to basically invent all the time and set standards for yourself that others don't even recognize. I'm sure out there among you are scientists and artists and performers and a lot of greatness. And I think that you're very fortunate in going to a school system like Shaker Heights High School. I feel like I was very fortunate in coming from here. The further away you get from it, the more you realize that this is a unique place, and it's an inspiring place, and it can produce a wide variety of success stories like the ones you'll see today. And I wish you all well, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Henry A. LaPuma, class of '39, has strong roots in Shaker Heights and the community. He attended Moreland Elementary School, Shaker Junior, and Shaker Heights High School. He is active on the Insurance Board of Cleveland and the Insurance Committee of the Village of Gates Mills. He's one of the founding trustees of the Shaker Heights Alumni Association and served as its first president. Henry A. LaPuma.
I performed on this stage in the late 30s with a choir, and I also sang in a trio for pep rallies. I feel both humbled and appreciative to have been inducted along with so many outstanding people into the Shaker Heights Hall of Fame. Every generation has, so it seems, insurmountable problems. World War II clouds gathered while we were in high school, and they finally affected my life before completing my college education. I ended up in Prague, Czechoslovakia, at the end of World War II. Your goals in life may change from year to year, but when you decide what it is you really want to do, no matter how difficult, you must persevere and never quit. Remember, there is no free lunch. Hard work will get you where you want to go. Pick a field of endeavor which brings satisfaction or helps other people. Courtesy and good manners never go out of style and are just as important as a college degree. In spite of education and degrees, the name of the game in life is getting along with people. Many accomplished people fall short in this category. Life is full of peaks and valleys, and every generation has its challenges. When I was a teenager, we went through a depression and a global war. Your generation can make a difference to wipe out wars, poverty, and make the world a better place to live. Each one of you can make a difference. I received a card from a friend the other day congratulating me on my induction, and I'm going to read it now because it's about the one thing we all want and what makes life worth living: happiness. It's entitled The Way to Happiness. Keep your heart free from hate, your mind free from worry. Live simply, expect little, give much, trust in God, and thank Him for all your blessings. Forget self, think of others. Do as you would be done by. Do all you can for people with no thought of personal gain. Fill your life with love. By following these guidelines, you will be well on your way to happiness. Thank you.
Our third honoree today is Lauren Roth, class of '57. He's a professor of psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh, chief of clinical services at Western Psychiatric Institute, and clinic and director of the Law and Psychiatry program at the Institute. In 1989, he was a leader of the psychiatric team that visited the USSR to assess changes in Soviet psychiatry and the status of political prisoners in Soviet mental hospitals. Lauren Roth.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. It means a lot to me to come back home and to share a few things in my life experiences with all of you students. Of course, I hope many of you will go to medical school and become a psychiatrist. I've had a very satisfying career doing that. Today, really, for all of us, is a celebration of diversity. I think you'll be very impressed to hear the variety of careers and ways of life and style among the honorees. I was very impressed last night. I believe in diversity as a central concept in life. Diversity is what must unite us rather than divide us, paradoxically. And as I look in the audience today, I see a much more diverse school than the school I attended. And I think that's all to your good fortune if you will exploit the differences to know and understand and be with all of your fellow students. About my own career, I felt that high school prepared me very well for Cornell and later Harvard Medical School. I remember especially a teacher, Mr. Jack Pickering, an ironic man, and he loved Shakespeare, and he talked to us about Shakespeare. He had a passion for his subject. And here I would simply echo what Rob Fisher said. Have a passion for life. Pursue your passions. Without that, you cannot transcribe what can be mediocre or second-rate into something that is uniquely yours. Do that. Now, when I was here, I liked to talk a lot, and I was a member of the LEL Speech League. I later went on to be a college debater. I later, because I became a prison doctor, went on to start the Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary debating team. My star debater was Jimmy Hoffa, and I could not teach him that much, but I tried. One of my other messages is that the main organizational principle in my life was a complete fluke. Namely, by working in this federal prison, I became interested in psychiatry, in law, in social policy, in health care delivery, and went on to organize my career around that. Exploit your opportunities, your flukes. I was the captain of the Shaker Heights golf team in 1957. And for those of you who don't play golf, there are two ways to play, summer rules and winter rules. When you play winter rules, you move the ball to make a better shot. When you play summer rules, you hit them as they lie. And that essentially, I believe, is the way that you achieve what your objective is. In other words, hit them where they lie and make the best of your opportunities. My experiences in the prison later led me to be interested in legal protections, patients' rights, psychiatry, and I've spent about 20 years doing research in subjects like informed consent, how to tell patients what is going to happen to them, how to evaluate people's abilities to make decisions. This kind of career, again, just by a series of flukes, led me eventually to become involved in Russia and what was now called the FSU, the former Soviet Union, where I started to go in 1986, experiencing the old Soviet Union. Subsequently, I've been there 10 times. I've basically been involved as a psychiatrist in working with the former Soviet Union and now the Russian government in initially trying to root out the problem of the placement of mental patients and people who were not mentally at all in psychiatric hospitals as a form of punishment. And I had a very interesting experience working with the State Department, negotiating with these Russian officials, learning how to do that thing, organizing trips to the Soviet Union. Of course, eventually the Soviet Union fell. And I was fortunate to be able to now help in reorganizing and doing some work there. So in conclusion, I would just like to say thank you very much. And I'm very happy to be here, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Gordon S. Friedman, class of '60, is an attorney with a private law practice specializing in criminal and civil litigation. He served as executive director of the Free Medical Clinic of Greater Cleveland from 1970 to 1972. Mr. Friedman served in the Public Defender's Office at Cleveland Legal Aid Society for 3 years and received the Claude E. Clark Award for Outstanding Legal Aid Attorney. Gordon S. Friedman.
Thank you. As indicated, I graduated from Shaker in 1960, and I think that probably tells you a whole lot about me, frankly, because I, as well as my classmates, were really formed by the 60s. It was an amazing time for us, and though I may appear to you as a parent, as one of your parents, in fact, I beseech you to continue to listen to me for at least a moment. In some ways, I kind of feel like E.T. as he came to Earth talking to a body of strangers, but as I say, even though I'm a parent and probably old enough to be one of your parents, there's some experiences that we have that are really worth listening to. Getting back to the 60s, it was an amazing time. The music was amazing, the people were amazing. And I think that we all had ideals, and we believed in things. And many of my ideals came from Shaker, surprisingly enough. And though Shaker then was not as diverse as it is today in terms of color and economic background, I did have friends of color, and I did have friends who were less fortunate, more fortunate than I was. And many of us went out into a world that we thought was ideal, not unlike Shaker, only to find out that there was a world that was to be created with a confusing war in Southeast Asia, where some of our students from Shaker went and never came back. Also to find out that our leaders that we thought would change the world would be assassinated. It was very confusing. But from that, and from that confusion, from the tragedy of the 60s, I think many of us were determined that life could be better and that we could make change. And that's why I became an attorney. I really didn't want to be a lawyer. I always wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer, representing people who were really outcast and who had been shunned aside by society, so to speak. And I have done that all my life, and it has brought me great joy. It's brought me some sorrow, too, I might add, based on what I see going on in our country today. But it seems to me that those of you, particularly your seniors, have many of the same opportunities that we had in the 60s. I know you don't want to admit it, and there's some similarities between my generation, your parents' generation, and your generation, because it seems to me that you have a perfect time for change today. As Bob Dylan said, the times they are changing, I assume that they'll change radically in the next several weeks. Take advantage of that. There are amazing things out there and challenges for you that you can change. We didn't do a great job. We tried, and we failed in many instances, but I think the time is right for you to succeed, to take and challenge racism in this country and poverty, and to deal with the problems relating to AIDS and to educate people. We had Vietnam, you've got AIDS, and I think AIDS is a war that you're going to have to confront. Many of you who think you're not going to be affected by it, you will be. I think that I would urge you all to dare to dissent and dare to be different. I might add, and parenthetically, let me preach a bit. As a criminal defense attorney, I see many young people your age, 17, 18, and 19, smart people, people who are creative, being taken away and let off into prisons because of drugs and other such things, many of whom are going to spend a great deal of their life in cages. That has to stop. There are too many valuable young people that are being wasted in resources, and I hope that many of you commit yourself to prevent that from happening. There are seductions out there for you, as there were for us, including drugs and alcohol. I'm not here to preach completely, but I do think you need to be aware of it. You're incredible. You have incredible resources. Don't blow it. Your generation, it seems to me, can improve on my generation and our failures. It seems to me that you are, in fact, the leaders of the 21st century. And it seems to me that you should not, and hesitate to take on whatever authority that there is, whether it's a school principal, a teacher in a classroom, your parents, or anybody. Dare to be different. Dare to challenge. I don't care what you look like, whether you're wearing hair like a Rasta man or have a crew cut. Don't let appearances state who you are. William O. Douglas, who surprisingly enough was a Supreme Court justice, has said that the right to revolt has sources deep in our country. in our country's history. And whatever level your revolt is and whatever level your contribution is, don't be afraid to do it. Dare to do it. You're at the age now where that has to happen. That's what your life should be about. And I commend you all to challenge the future because it's yours. Thank you very much.
Herbert Warden, class of 39, attended medical school at the University of Chicago, served a tour of duty as a medical officer in the Navy, and completed his surgical training at the University of Minnesota. During his residency, his interest in research was ignited. His pioneering work in open heart surgery led to his research groups receiving the Albert Lasher Award from the American Public Health Association in 1955. The principles they pursued in supporting the patient during surgery are the basis for the heart-lung machines used today. Herbert Warden.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate this opportunity to greet you folks this morning. The last time I was on this stage, I picked up my diploma, and this is the first trip back to Shaker High. I had an opportunity, Russell Rupp, when he was superintendent of schools, invited me here to address the student body about 25 years ago, but other conflicts prevented me from doing so. I'm glad that finally I arrived. I'm a Cleveland-born kid, lived in Shaker, went through the Shaker educational system, was an average student. I had no objectives. I moved around much like an amoeba during my first few years until a family disaster, the death of my father and my grandfather, both of whom I was dearly indebted, dearly loved, gave me my motivation to try to go to medicine. The problem was my grades were not thought to be good enough to get into medical school, but with the counsel and comfort and guidance of the Shaker teaching program my last year and a half here, principally Dr. Payton, Mr. Payton, who was the principal at the time, and Russell Rupp, who also had become a very close friend of mine. I ended up ending up my college educational degree at University of Chicago with an MD, followed by surgery training at the University of Minnesota. At that point, my objective was nothing more than to come back and be a respected surgeon in Cleveland. However, in that institution, we had to participate in research, and I had the good fortune of joining a group of people who were trying to find a way to access the interior of the heart. Had never been operated on in a direct vision. We fell upon a method by which we used a donor individual and a patient individual connected together by a pump so that their circulations exchanged blood in equal directions in both ways. After probably 150 experiments using this technique in the laboratory, which worked, we ascended to the human operating room on the 26th of March, 1954. The case was a success. Over the next 15 months, 45 patients were done in this manner with an excellent survival rate. By that time, mechanical oxygenators had come into being. It's no longer necessary to use on other individuals as a source of oxygenation. The point of all of this is that take the opportunity that comes to you. It may change your course. The one thing I regret that since the occurrence of my research experience, I was diverted from general surgery to that of heart surgery, which has prevented my return to Cleveland. I'm glad I finally made it back. However, whenever you have an opportunity, evaluate it, assess it, and make a commitment. You can indeed do it. There are some things that you must adhere to. One is that you treat others as you would like to be treated. This is a principle that applies in everyday life as well as in professional life. If you have any goals to go after, give it a try. Hard work pays off. I thank you very much.
Davis, class of '69, is a gifted singer, actor, and dancer, and has appeared on Broadway in Ubi, Bubbling Brown Sugar, and Stop the World. He's a member of the Nylons, an a cappella quartet that specializes in vocal gymnastics. Billy Newton Davis.
What's happening? How you doing? Good. I gotta make this short and sweet. I had a really great time here in high school, and it was a place that I could come to every day, and I was allowed to be myself. And I had some great times, some great friends, etc. And I want you to know, I didn't have excellent grades, and you know, academics didn't exhilarate me. But I knew what I wanted to do, and this educational system motivated me to want a higher and better education. So I went on to OU, and I graduated. But I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to be a successful entertainer. And it's happening. As you know, I've done Broadway. I've traveled all over the world. I'm singing with the Nylons. We have a new album out called Live to Love. It's a great record. Go get it. I'm pushing it. But I think that, you know, my point is I've done film, I've done TV, I write songs, I've hung out with great stars, I've done some really incredible things in my life. But I think that the bottom line is that what I want you to know is if you have a dream and you have some goals, go with it. Like, don't let anybody turn you around and tell you that you can't do it, because you can't do it. Are you down with that? I said, are you down with that? So go on, have a good life, enjoy yourself, and thanks a lot.
Jolyn Brucker Darden, class of '70, is a member of the faculty at the Shannon Rogers and Jarrett Silverman School of Fashion Design and Merchandising at Kent State University. She's involved in community work with Ronald McDonald House, Playhouse Square Association, and the Special Olympics. Jolyn Brucker Darden.
Good morning. Billy, thank you. You broke the ice. You woke him up. It was great. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm the only woman of this illustrious group of 11 successful people. That should tell you something interesting. I'm also an active college professor, and so I address persons like yourself every day, and I do understand a little bit what you are looking forward to, what you're going through, and I think you've got some really interesting challenges in front of you. My message to you is one from the heart. I think that when you talk about how I spent my time here in these halls, I have some great memories. I really do. But what was important was that I learned so much more than just what was in the books, what was academic. I was a difficult person to deal with when I was here. I was persistent. I was aggressive. I was determined. I was not going to be stopped. When I talked about what it was I wanted to do, I wanted to be in the fashion world, and some of my teachers said, fashion? Well, I know you like to dress nicely, but what else does that mean? There was a whole world out there that most of them knew nothing about. Fortunately, I had parents who helped me persist in finding what it was that I wanted to do that wasn't in the mainstream. Well, I've made a very good living doing that. What I was successful at here and what I benefited from was encouragement to do what I wanted to do. While they didn't quite understand it, and they said I was a little bit of a strange bird, at least they let me do it. They let me go forward and say, well, if whatever it is you want to do, at least try, at least go for it. Get what it is that you need to get where you want to be. With the tools that I started with here, I've been able to socialize and work with some of the great designers in the world and great business people in the world of fashion, some of whom I'm sure you've heard of. I've traveled to every country in the world, with the exception of maybe Australia and a couple of really faraway places, but I've seen some really interesting things. I've been able to be a decision maker in what the Cleveland people will wear in fashion. which sometimes is a real challenge. I'm sure I don't know where you buy your clothes, but I'm sure you come up with some real creative things. Remember when we were in school, most of us, we didn't have jeans, we weren't allowed to wear this, we weren't allowed to wear that, although sometimes I must tell you I wore it and just hid in the corner. I support causes that I believe in because I believe that in tandem with what you do for business, you have to step forward and make an issue out of the things that are important to you. And so there are some causes that I really do support and back, and that has a lot to do with how I've gotten to be as well known as I have. But if I can say one thing to you, it's that take what you get in encouragement along the way. There's a lot of help out there. You are going to need it. You're going to have to be the best that you can be. You're going to have to be better than the rest, better than everyone, so that you can be at the top of your field. If you need something, I'm at Kent State University in the world of fashion or elsewhere. Call me. I'll be happy to try and help you. I do wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Stephen Bucheri, class of '58, heads the firm Bucheri Architects. Mr. Bucheri is a recipient of numerous honors and awards, including a 1991 Cleveland Arts Prize for Architecture. Stephen Bucheri.
We just may have had a comment on my work. It's an honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame and have the opportunity to speak to you today. When I was at Shaker, I wouldn't have expected to be in this position today. I was an above-average student. I had transferred from a city of Cleveland school, not too far from Shaker. I came to Shaker in the 7th grade. It took me most of high school to catch up with the rest of the people in my class. Once in college, I found that I did have a good background, and I was as well prepared as most everyone at school. I started with 45 people in my class at Carnegie Mellon. 15 of us managed to graduate with a Bachelor of Architecture. When we first got there, a professor said, look to your left and look to your right. Those people aren't going to be there when you graduate. I started my own firm I returned to Cleveland in 1964, and I worked for 2 large offices. You're required to work for 3 years and then take your architectural registration exams. After that, I started my own firm. Completed work includes industrial and commercial projects, public and private recreational buildings, public health and library facilities. Done some residential work and the adaptive reuse of 2 historic school buildings in Murray Hill. Some of my recent projects include a branch library for the Cleveland Public Library, recreation center in the city of Cleveland on the west side of the city, and an exciting project for me, the remodeling and expansion of the Cleveland Health Education Museum. I've kept my firm small so that I can be involved with all of the phases of the work, from program analysis through the construction supervision. This attention has resulted in a consistent quality to the work. I've received design awards for my work from the Cleveland and state chapters of the AIA, American Institute of Architecture. My work was included in the Akron, Ohio Perspectives exhibit that was at the Akron Art Museum and the Riff Gallery in Columbus. And last year I received the Cleveland Arts Prize for Architecture. The awards and honors are welcome, and it's satisfying to have somebody agree with you. But the real satisfaction is in the work itself, the design process, the completed work, the buildings, the interiors, the material selections, and the small details, the furniture, the lighting fixtures, and the interaction with the environment. It's an honor for me to be included with such talented people. Ran into a lot of bright people at Shaker Heights when I was there. I'd like to thank all the people at Shaker that helped me establish a direction. And I'd like to wish you all good luck, and whatever you decide to do, just stick with it.
Theodore R. Bloomfeld, class of 41, first won regional conducting competitions when he was a student at Shaker Heights High School. His career included conductorships of the Portland, Oregon Symphony, Hamburg State Opera, the Frankfurt Opera, the Berlin Symphony Orchestra, and German Opera. Theodore R. Bloomfeld.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back with you this morning. It is not easy to offer suggestions to you who are about to set out into a world that has changed so profoundly in the 51 years since I left this school. At that time, the last chapter in our American history book was Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal. When I consider all that you have had to learn since then, I doubt that I could pass your exams. Yet here I am before you after a career in a specialized field that must have seemed peripheral to my classmates, a field on which I was already determined. It meant long years of preparation after college, for a conductor must attain both instrumental proficiency and broad knowledge of the repertoire. Even after my training was complete, it took me a long time to get started, for a conductor needs 60 or more players to make music with him. And at that time that I emerged, most American orchestras were hiring European conductors. Thanks to a generation of outstanding American conductors, beginning with Leonard Bernstein, that is no longer the case. Those of you with artistic talent should find opportunities sooner than I did. Others among you will enter business, law, medicine, or other more normal fields, and will probably find rewards before I did. My path was one of postponed satisfactions. My friends married and had homes before I did. So I went to Europe to gain experience, and there I had reason to be grateful for the start in foreign languages that I'd gotten here at Shaker High. I'd studied Latin and French here, then German at Oberlin, and eventually Italian, partly from French and a textbook, and partly through living there, reading newspapers and speaking with Italians. Fortunately, Italy was friendly to foreign conductors after the war, and one engagement led to another. And it was from Italy that at 32 I was called to my first conductorship in this country with the Portland Symphony Orchestra in Oregon. That must seem like a long detour to those of you who expect to make your careers in America. Yet you never know what the future may bring in a world now more accessible than the one into which I emerged. Foreign languages have become more important today, and I urge you to make the most of them. For whether or not you ever work in a foreign country, you may well travel more than your parents did. And the better you understand and speak the languages of the countries you visit, the greater satisfaction you'll have and the more you'll enrich your lives. And don't shortchange the grammar. At this stage it may seem like drudgery, but later on the desire to speak a language correctly will increase your ability, intellectual curiosity, and enjoyment. Remember, we can't always expect others to speak English. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's the only way to overcome your inhibitions and learn to speak a language well. I'm happy to learn that this school has received Ohio's highest award for excellence in teaching classical languages. In my activity abroad, I was aware of the role of music as an international language of reconciliation and understanding. I was a guest in host countries, often conducting their music. Without their tolerance, I could not have made my way. Each of you possesses certain individual gifts with which you will make your way and your contribution. You will enter a society whose technological advances have gone beyond anything we imagined, but which has become more competitive and, I fear, more polemic, polarized, and less tolerant. Whereas our generation was expected to conform, the next generation won the right to be different and to dissent. And your generation will have the responsibility to preserve and to exercise those rights sensibly. Your success, in my view, will be measured not by the amount of money you earn or by the power and prestige you gain, but by the lives that you influence and the understanding, tolerance, and well-being that you promote. That involves all levels of your existence, vocational, civic, family, and personal. When you see an opportunity to enrich a community, an institution, or a life, don't let it pass. The great French Pierre Monteux, conductor, one of my mentors, once said, "Everybody is somebody." Your own services are your most important asset. Keep your options open as you see fit, but once you've made your commitment, pursue it devotedly, resolutely, and wisely. As you excel, you'll encounter opposition and envy. Don't let them deter you. And if at times you should doubt your ability to succeed, remember what you've read about Harry Truman, the ordinary fellow who achieved the extraordinary. Good luck to you all.
Donald J. Kirk, class of 51's education at Yale was interrupted in 1953 when he joined the Naval Aviation Cadet Program and served as a carrier-based aviator until 1957. He was appointed board member of the Financial Accounting Standards Board and remained with the organization for 14 years, 9 of which he was chairman. Mr. Kirk is currently a professor at Columbia University Graduate School of Business and a consultant and corporate director. Donald J. Kirk.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be included among such a group of distinguished honorees. I'm the accountant of the group. The creative genius is all seated out in front of you. I told a story last night that I hope that the creativity of this group didn't rub off on me, because creative accountants don't get into halls of fame. They end up in jail. In my brief comments, I would really like to relate a few of the messages or goals that guided me, and hope they might be suggestions to you in your life as you look ahead. You've heard some of them before, but they're worth repeating. Set high goals. Challenge yourself. These are very difficult economic times, and it's important that you set those goals. Don't wait for others to do it for you. Find what suits you and pursue it. For some of us, and for me, it's a process of trial and error. Take those chances. Life allows you to make some mistakes. And thirdly, give back some of those successes. I can vouch that community service is truly rewarding. I am, of course, a product of my times, the 1950s, and I'm a product of this fine school system. But I'm also the offspring of parents of very humble origins. My father emigrated to this country at the age of 19. His formal education had been over at the age of 15 and a half. My mother's parents arrived in this country as adults and didn't speak the English language, and had a difficult time throughout their lifetimes mastering that language. And I certainly have stumbled as I searched to find what best suited me. In fact, here at Shaker Heights High School, my focus seemed to be entirely on athletics. I had goals. I strove to meet those goals, but when you're 5 foot 9 inches and 140 pounds, all that energy put into athletics might have been a bit misdirected. But fortunately, I did have a few teachers who recognized I had some innate talents that I should work to develop, and they certainly gave me guidance that stood me well in the future life that I led. I was arrogant enough or foolish enough to apply to only one college. I hope none of you are as foolish as that. But in my mind, I knew what was the best college. I applied to it, and I was accepted, fortunately. But I wasn't ready for what that college had to offer me. I did what was unfashionable back in the times that I was there. I dropped out. And I returned 4 years later, and I was a more mature, motivated student who was ready to accept what the great university at Yale had to offer, and I benefited from it. In fact, it was a correspondence course that I took while I was in the Navy that also helped shape my career and sent me into a profession that proved to be extremely rewarding. And my latest capacity is as a professor in a school of business, I think I'm able now to return to others some of the successes that I achieved. And it's truly the community services that I was able to participate in throughout my professional life and my present life that have given me the greatest satisfaction. I think the greatest service I can do to the community I'm addressing today is yield the rest of my time to a member of the younger generation whose relevance may be greater than mine. Thank you very much for listening.
Our last honoree today is Michael McElroy, class of '85. He has been active in music and theater since his days singing in the choir of Harvest Missionary Baptist Church and in Shaker's a cappella choir. He attended Carnegie Mellon University, then moved to New York, appearing with Denzel Washington in the New York Shakespeare Richard III, with the South African cast of Serafina in its national tour, and in Miss Saigon and High Rollers on Broadway. He volunteers with AIDS organizations and returns to Shaker every year to conduct music and theater workshops. Michael McElroy.
Good morning. Thanks, Mom. My 3 years at Shaker were a special time for me. They formed the foundation for all of my educational and professional experiences to come. James Thornton and Shaker's theater department were a very special part of my Shaker experience. One of my highlights in the theater department was senior acting ensemble, where physical fitness, spirituality, and a sense of unity were stressed. Mr. Thornton also gave me the opportunity to explore and write my own music. While at Shaker, I wrote and produced 3 musicals, one of which was filmed for Viacom Television. In the music department, John Everson refined my other skills. In choir, Mr. Everson demanded we be able to sight read our parts, and those of us who played piano had to accompany 1 or 3 of the choirs. Moreover, both Mr. Thornton and Mr. Everson kept a sharp eye on our grades and insisted that we work to our academic potential. German, one of my academic classes with Frau Meyer, eventually led to my being an exchange student. For 2 consecutive summers, I traveled to Germany, where I toured the country as well as lived with a host family in Goslar. With Shaker as my foundation, I went to Carnegie Mellon, where I graduated with a BFA in drama and university honors, moved to New York City immediately, and was lucky enough to get an agent to represent me. My first 2 weeks out of college, my first job was Richard III at the New York Shakespeare Festival in Central Park, featuring Denzel Washington. A few weeks after its close, I auditioned and was offered a role in Serafina, now a feature film with Whoopi Goldberg. I performed in Serafina as one of 2 Americans amongst a cast of 30 South African performers. After Serafina, I was offered a spot in Miss Saigon on Broadway, where I am presently playing a GI as well as understudying one of the principal actors. I've also performed in High Rollers, a New Orleans musical review on Broadway for a short time. In addition to Broadway, I've done national commercials for Rubbermaid, HBO, Diet Coke featuring Elton John, MTV, and my favorite, an AT&T commercial for the Olympics. I relate all this to you to prove one thing. The dreams do come true, and my dreams began here at Shaker. So I encourage you to take advantage of the various opportunities you have here that many other public schools don't offer. I challenge you to start today building your future. I wasn't always sure what I wanted to do, but here at Shaker I had the support and freedom to discover my interests. I learned to have a goal or a dream, to believe in it, and pursue it to the end. Now, I haven't even begun to accomplish all that I want to do, but I'm well on my way, thanks to a strong start at Shaker Heights High School. And I'd like to leave you with this thought. The more I live, the more I learn. The more I learn, the more I realize, the less I know. Each step I take, each page I turn, each mile I travel only means the more I have to go. What's wrong with wanting more? If you can fly, then soar. With all there is, why settle for just a piece of sky? Thank you.
They were great, weren't they? I don't know how many of you are juniors and how many are seniors, but for those of you who are juniors, see you next year.